It is finally time for a brand new Mario Kart game, and I could not be more excited. I mean, the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal itself was long overdue, but nothing is more long overdue than Mario Kart 9, which has been 11 years almost removed from the last mainline entry being Mario Kart 8 in 2014. And so, because of that, obviously, and quite reasonably so, there's been plenty and plenty of speculation and videos going over different aspects of what could we see in the new Mario Kart game. But one aspect that has always piqued my interest since long before we saw this reveal has to be the prospect of single player in Mario Kart. With Mario Kart 9 probably being the launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2, and the fact that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe can be played on the Nintendo Switch 2 day one due to backwards compatibility, I think really influences the idea of Nintendo actually entertaining a substantial single player mode in a Mario Kart game finally. The closest we've got is mission mode in Mario Kart DS. However, aside from that, the series has strived without a need for a single player push, and I don't think that it necessarily needs a single player push, as it will do fine regardless. However, I think that being the launch title, as I said before, most likely means that there is a certain ambition to the game. I think Nintendo want to make sure that the game can be the biggest so that it reflects well on the console as a whole, and also differentiates itself from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe so that people will be willing to buy the new game straight away instead of thinking, well, I can wait until it's on sale, or I can hold on to my Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and just play that on my Switch 2. So I do think that there would be a reason to push a single player aspect to the game. But, you know, the video isn't necessarily about what I think Nintendo will do or what I think Nintendo should do for the series, and it's just kind of what I want Nintendo to do with the series, and I want single player to be implemented into Mario Kart. And there are several ways I think Nintendo could go about doing this. Mission mode in Mario Kart DS was a really fun mode. I mean, you had these different, objectives that were given to you in a certain racetrack, and you had to drift a certain amount of times in one lap in Baby Park, or collect a certain amount of mystery boxes. And at the end of each collection of these missions, there was a boss fight, like the big bully. You kind of have to push him down the side a few times, and you have the battle mode balloons, and it's a really fun little mode. However, it does feel a little bit underbaked, and I think that it was well overdue a proper return, a proper renovation, I suppose, in Mario Kart 9. Now, the way that they could go about bringing back the mission mode is, firstly, they could just bring it back as it was, but for the Switch 2 with the Mario Kart 9 tracks. However, I think that there's more potential to use the skeleton of the concept and make it into something more. For example, you could reskin it, you could put these missions in a little overworld map like a 2D Mario game, and add a very basic, low effort story, and it becomes a little story mode for a Mario Kart game. And these different missions with the different levels, and you have the boss fights incorporated through a story. That would be really fun. However, I think my favourite way of incorporating mission mode into a new Mario Kart game is by essentially making it a way of earning certain things. So in Mario Kart Tour, you can get a bunch of different costumes, obviously, for your characters, as it is a gacha game at the end of the day, and so they have to make the money somehow. But the idea of these endless amounts of costumes for the cast is something that I think everyone really wants to see in a new Mario Kart game. And there's not going to be in-app purchases in Mario Kart 9, and so I think that a great way of going about it is by essentially making the missions a constant. You can keep on going back to them, and you use like maybe a progress bar as you go through the missions. You keep on unlocking different costumes, or you unlock a certain currency, an in-game currency, to maybe buy some of the costumes, so it's not random. I think that it would be a really smart way of bringing back the mission mode and modernizing it, because stuff like the catalogue in Splatoon 3 I thought was really successful at keeping you coming back for more. Maybe you can even earn some of this currency in normal races as well. But I think that the mission mode returning as a progress bar and a way of unlocking certain items is just a match made in heaven, and I would be really surprised if that didn't happen. This next idea is, downright unlikely, not impossible, but I think a little bit too ambitious to be a side mode in the game, and probably would be its own game if they were ever going to make it. However, the idea of a Mario Kart Maker being a side mode would, I think, be a perfect storm and the perfect situation for Mario Kart 9 as the most likely launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2. The Nintendo Switch 2 obviously has the mouse feature they haven't officially addressed, but they've basically hinted at, which basically means that you can play with your Joy-Con as if it's a mouse, which would fix a lot of the issues when it comes to awkward controls, especially in Mario Maker 2, which suffered, I think, from not having the gamepad. And so Mario Maker 3 is obviously an inevitability. However, I don't think that it's coming so soon. And I feel like with the C button and the mouse con, and if that C button is the campus feature that's been rumoured, I think that would be a perfect storm to essentially have a mode where you can make a little track, maybe nothing too complex, something like from SNES, like a flat track, and then you can press your C button and you can share it with your friends. You can send it right over instead of having to have a tedious code, and you can make the tracks with relative ease as you use the mouse feature instead of having to awkwardly use the stick. I think this idea is a little bit too ambitious, and I don't think that's what they're going to do. However, I think that if they did it, I think it would be a perfect way of showing off what the system can do and how it differentiates itself from Nintendo Switch 1 perfectly. And who doesn't want a Mario Kart Maker? I've always wanted to be able to make my own tracks, as it's one of my favourite parts of the series is thinking up different ideas. And so if Nintendo incorporated this, I think it would be really fun and very interesting. However, I don't think that's what they're going to do. The idea that people have the most prevalently is the idea of Forza Horizon but Mario Kart, and this is a really ambitious idea, and I'm a little bit conflicted on it, because I would love to see how they would do it. Like, I would love to see how they would actually pull it off, because it's all well and good saying you want a big open world Mario Kart game, but what would you want to do in it? And the thing is, open world is kind of a thing. It's kind of a thing that's kind of going a little bit out of fashion now, because people initially were like, we want open world, we want to be able to go anywhere we want. But then when it happened, when the oversaturation of open world games happened, then people realized, well, I don't want to just be able to go anywhere if there's just nothing to do. And I don't know if there's enough to do in an open world Mario Kart game to really justify the amount of budget that would be put into essentially, making the game open world and being able to explore around an entire map, just for the sake of ambition, the sake of fun. The idea of Forza Horizon Mario Kart would be really cool, and if they do decide to do it, I trust the team that they have an idea to really make it engaging and interesting. I think it would be an insane power move, especially if you follow on from the initial reveal trailer where they go off almost into the sunset, and then we see that you can explore all around that map and do tricks and talk to certain NPCs. It would be really fun, it would be very bold. However, it would be a trade-off, I think, and I don't know if I want Mario Kart to essentially waste a lot of its budget on what would essentially be an empty open world. The idea certainly sounds more exciting, but when you think about the idea for longer, it really starts to wonder, would it be worth it? What I think is the happy medium and my favourite idea, and it's kind of like a middle ground between the Forza Horizon mode, I guess, and the mission mode coming back, and it's essentially making a full-on story mode in the same way as like Crash Team Racing or like Diddy Kong Racing, and it's essentially that there is a world Grand Prix essentially, and you kind of take on the different Grand Prix in different areas of the Mushroom, or not the Mushroom Kingdom, I guess the Mario universe, and you have normal races across the different tracks in each of the areas, and then you have like a boss fight, which is a race. It's a boss fight race kind of thing, and you could even incorporate like the mission mode style bosses, as well as there'd probably be another force, like a sinister overarching force, maybe from Rainbow Road potentially, that is sending down certain enemies. And yeah, so it's about progression. You're upgrading your character as you go, and you're doing Grand Prix stuff, I guess. Kind of, you're doing races in these, but it feels more interactive and it feels more interesting. And going back to the mission mode idea, you could kind of incorporate different alternative objectives in there. You could say like, oh, in this race, try to drift 5 times or whatever. So it's kind of like a little additional kind of objective to do, and that maybe gives you more points, maybe gives you more EXP. And yeah, I mean, how this would be presented, I mean, it's up to Nintendo. You could have just an overall map for it, or you could have little hubs that you could practice and do little tricks on. Maybe the stadiums themselves are little hubs that you can practice before you get into them. This is still quite ambitious, and I think that Nintendo might not go that far, but I think that there's a lot of potential there, and I think that given Diddy Kong Racing and Crash Team Racing already exist and have done this for a couple decades ago, means that it shouldn't be too ambitious for Nintendo at all. And I think that it's absolutely in the realm of possibility that Nintendo decide to do this, and I think it would be the best way of incorporating single player into Mario Kart 9. Well, that is just about time. I think that I've discussed enough single player in Mario Kart. I don't know if there's anything else I could have even discussed, but if there is, I would really appreciate if you comment below any ideas that you have. And if you don't have any ideas, I'd really still appreciate a comment. Just see where your head's at when it comes to single player in Mario Kart. Do you think it's necessary? Do you think that maybe it's a waste of resources? Or do you agree with me that you think that it's kind of a thing that I think should have been a thing in Mario Kart as a series for a while now? Thank you so much for watching this video, and I really appreciate the support of the channel so far. My last video did way better than I ever expected it to do, and so if you enjoyed this one, I'd really appreciate it. If you liked this, I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed and maybe shared with a friend so that this train can keep on going. But anyway, that's all I have time for today. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.